Ladies and gentlemen, Easy Aces.
Well, the Aces are in it again. This time a lawsuit brought by Mr. Neff, the man who offered Jane $500 if she could sell his property to Mr. Everett. In the mix-up, Jane sold Mr. Everett a piece of property Mr. Ace was trying to sell. Mr. Neff claims foul play. This episode takes place in alternate scenes between the offices of the two opposing lawyers, where we shall also find the complainant and plaintiff. But first to Mr. and Mrs. Ace with their lawyer. Listen.
Now, Mr. Ace, and you too, Mrs. Ace.
Yes?
Are you still decided to go through with this case, telling the story as it actually happened?
Why do you keep saying we ought to manufacture a story? That isn't going to get us anywhere. Sure, we're going to tell what actually happened. And we've got one great witness to testify that it actually happened that way. I mean, old man Everett. He's the one that Jane did business with. He'll testify for us. Now, Mr. Kelly, will you please get your mind off of manufacturing some outlandish story about what happened, and let's start working on this case on that basis.
Well, it's plain to see you've never been sued before.
No, I'm just an amateur, I'll admit it, and if I had my way, I'd see to it that my amateur standing was never lost.
Well, if you insist.
I do.
After all, you're the client.
Yes.
But I warn you, it's going to be very difficult to prove to a judge that Mrs. Ace here talked for 2 weeks to Mr. Everett about selling him a plot of ground, and neither one knew what the other was talking about.
But I tell you,
I know Mr. Everett will testify she did, but will he?
What?
Will he risk making a laughing stock of himself before a court by admitting that a man as big in business as he is carries on in this childish and as guileless a manner as that? I doubt it. Oh, no, Mr. Ace. It's not going to be the cinch you think it is.
But it actually happened that way. My goodness, you don't...
The truth is always the hardest to prove.
Oh.
Now, that's my motto. You want to risk making your wife a laughing stock of herself by admitting she never had the perception to understand that Mr. Everett was talking about your property all the time she was talking about Mr. Neff? You wouldn't let her do that, would you?
Yes.
What?
She'll do what it...
Mrs. Ace.
Yes, sir?
Are you willing to stand up in court all through this trial and say that for 2 weeks you did business with a man, and in all that time you didn't know what he was talking about? Are you?
Well...
You see, Mr. Ace, she won't do it.
She won't? Well, she certainly will.
But, dear...
Yes, you will. That's Evelyn.
No, I won't.
Yeah, there you are. That's what I thought.
I should say I won't stand up for 2 weeks.
Oh, you won't stand...
No, I won't, dear. Now, don't ask me to. I'm tired of running around so much and doing so much.
Just a minute. What's going on?
Well,
here?
you started.
I started what? I asked the lady.
Well, I won't stand up for 2 weeks.
I didn't say stand up for 2 weeks. I said you talked for 2 weeks.
Oh, you're going to make it harder now. Stand up and talk for 2 weeks.
Now, who said... Listen, Mrs. Ace, do you realize the seriousness of this case? Do you realize that a man is asking $10,000 damages on several charges? Conspiracy to defraud, breaking of contract, etc., etc.?
Oh, I'll say he's eccentric. If he thought that I'm...
Eccentric? Who said anything
I
about...
warned you to leave her alone. Will you let me handle her part in this?
But she...
I know. You see, if my regular lawyer weren't away on his vacation, I wouldn't be having all this trouble. Is there any way of getting a postponement or something?
Not a chance. I'm looking forward to an early trial. Maybe sometime next week.
Next week?
Next week? Why, I haven't had a chance to get any new clothes.
New clothes?
Well, sure. If I'm being sued for $10,000, don't I have to look it?
Look it?
Next week?
What?
What do you mean, next week?
What does she mean, look it?
I don't know what I'm worrying about next week. I have to have time to get my wits together. This happened so suddenly.
Look at you say, Mrs. Ace?
Yes, how would it look if somebody's suing me for $10,000 and I don't look like I've got it? Oh, no, they're not going to have a chance to say, look who's being sued for $10,000 and she isn't even wearing a silver fox.
Jane, will you please stop that awful...
Well, look, pound for everything, dear. Now, do you want people to laugh at me?
Laugh at you how? What are you talking about?
Well, don't you see how silly it's going to look, suing somebody for $10,000 and she doesn't look like she's got it? Oh, no, he can't do that to me.
Who can't do what to you?
Mr. Neff, I see what he's trying to do. He wants us to hurry and get the trial started before I've got a chance to buy anything to wear. That's his way of getting even with me. Well, he can't do that to me. He's not going to get this trial started until I...
Now, Mr. Neff, just how soon do you want this case to go to trial?
How soon? Look here, young man. Are you the lawyer or aren't you?
Oh, sure, Mr. Neff. Sure I am.
My lawyer had to be out of town at a time like this, and they had to send me you.
Oh, but I'll be able to pinch hit for him, Mr. Neff. Oh, I'm sure I will.
Well, you better be. I've got an airtight case against these people. Foolproof. You can't do a thing to hurt it. Not even you. Hey, look here. How long have you been a lawyer, Johnson?
How long?
Yeah.
To tell the truth, I've been around the office for about a year or so, but...
Yeah, but this is your first case, is that it?
Well,
I thought so. Fine going. My lawyer had to be out of town at a time like this.
But, Mr.
No
Neff...
buts about it. All right, I'm stuck with you, and I'm going to let you go through with it. But only because the case can't be lost.
Oh, it's not going to be as easy as that, Mr. Neff.
Not going to be easy?
Well, it looks easy, but, it's going to be kind of hard to prove that you talked business with Mrs. Ace for 2 weeks and you never knew she was trying to put one over on you.
But she did try. She did put it over. She deliberately stalled me off, making me believe she was trying to sell my property when all the time she was selling her own husband's property.
Yes, I know, Mr. Neff, but, would it make you look kind of bad to admit that you entered into this agreement with a woman whose husband is in the real estate business?
What?
Well, you offered Mrs. Ace $500 to sell your property.
Yes, and she took an advance of $250. That's where I got her.
Yes, and that's where she's got you, too.
Got me? Well, what are you talking about?
Well, it's going to look kind of funny to stand up in court and say that a man as shrewd as you are deliberately played into the hands of this woman, the wife of a competitive real estate man.
But she hornswoggled me.
Yes, I know she did, Mr. Neff, but, you want to risk your reputation like that?
Risk my reputation?
Yes, don't you see it, Mr. Neff? Now, I've studied this case from every angle. Now, I don't want anything to go wrong. I can't afford it, being my first case. Why, what would my fellow classmates think?
Your fellow look here, boy. I don't give a hang what your classmates think. What do you think this is, a kindergarten? I've got $10,000 at stake here.
Oh, yes, of course, the money, Mr. Neff, but after all, isn't there something in winning a point?
A point? I'll point you right out that
but
door.
Mr. Neff,
now, you look here. I've got a foolproof, airtight case. The woman deliberately misled me. I can prove it. A check for $250 I gave her, with her endorsement on the back of it. Isn't that proof enough? You bet your life it is. She took this money, knowing all the time her husband's property was going to be bought by old man Everett. She kept me out of the sale. Wouldn't let me get near the man to put my property up before it. A $70,000 sale, just shot to pieces. And you sit there and talk to me about winning a point.
Yes, but can't she prove she actually did try to sell your property?
How? How can she prove it?
Can't she get Mr. Everett to testify for her?
Get Mr. Everett to testify?
Yes, you see, that's a point in her favor now. It's 20 love.
20 love?
No, Mr. Neff, I think we'd better deliberate a little before we rush into court.
I won't stand for it. I want a trial right away. I want to win this trial, and I'm going to. I'm not going to let you lawyers complicate this case and make it look hard. No, sir.
But if we take our time, we'll make sure of winning.
Don't have to take time. It's all cut and dry. There's nothing to take time about. Why, I'll make a monkey out of Everett if he testifies he talked business to a woman for 2 weeks and didn't know what she was talking about.
But you did it too, Mr. Neff.
But she deliberately told me she was selling my property. It's very simple.
Not as simple as you think. No, I think we'd better wait a while before
I won't wait. That's final. We go to trial next week.
Next week?
You heard me. Oh, you get busy, young man.
Oh, but next week, Mr. Neff.
What's the matter with next week? Got a date?
A date? Oh, no. I don't have time for dates. Not with my first big case coming up. It's
It's what?
Well, after all, you know, this is my first big case, and...
Yeah?
Well, I want to look my best.
Look your best?
Yes, I can't go to court looking like this. I've got to get myself a pair of striped trousers and a dark coat.
Striped trousers?
Yes, I want to look like I'm going to win the $10,000, don't I? I've got to make an impression. And with my next 2 weeks' salary, I can go out and...
Your 2 weeks' salary? My lawyer had to be out of town at a time like this.
Now, take it easy, Mr. Neff. I want to do the right thing by you. Now, you just leave everything to me. I'll talk to their lawyer, and I'm sure he'll give us an extra week or two before we go to court.
Striped trousers with a dark coat.
Yes, you know, they call it a morning suit. Makes you look spiffy, all right. Lots of lawyers wear them in court. Great stuff.
And I thought the second day I'd wear something tailored, like a suit, sort of a striped skirt with an Oxford gray coat. I thought a most darling suit like
I
that.
take it back, Mr. Ace. I take it all back.
Take what back?
When I said that your wife couldn't prove to a court that she talked for 2 weeks with a man about selling him a $70,000 parcel of property and not realize he wasn't talking about the property she was offering, I take it all back.
Oh, you do?
I can see it all now, and I'm sure any judge in the country can.
Then we won't have to manufacture any story, or...
Absolutely not.
Well.
A cinch to win this case, as long as she can appear in court.
Well, I won't appear unless I look like $10,000. You can't do that for me.
Okay, Mrs. Ace, you win.
Beg pardon?
You win.
Is it all over? You mean we don't have to go to court?
No, you can wear what you like, he said.
Yes, I'll see old man Neff's lawyer and get him to stall the old guy off. Anything, just to keep her happy and looking like $10,000.
Looking like that. Most people want to look like $1 million, but she just wants to look like $10,000.
Yes, isn't it the truth?
Oh.
Well, Mrs. Ace, just how long do you think it'll take for you to get this trousseau?
Oh, this is so sudden, Mr. Kelly.
Isn't that
Well, now let
awful?
me see. I'll have to have the coat made. It's at a tailor's place. I'll go and ask them tomorrow just how long it'll
Yes,
take.
take your time, Mrs. Ace. Anything to keep you happy.
Well, then I have to see about what I'll wear the third day and the fourth
Wait
day.
a minute. How long do you think this is going to last?
Oh, that's right. How long do you think this is going to last, Mr. Kelly? I'll have to know so I can tell them how many outfits I
Just
want.
take your time. Make the rounds and buy what you want.
All right. Well, this is fun now. Now, let me see. I'll make a note here about going for the tailored suit tomorrow. Let's see. What date is tomorrow?
What's that book you've got there?
This? Oh, well, this is my diary that I'm going to keep all through this
Diary? There'll be no diaries in this case. Let me have that, Jake. Give me that.
Attaboy, Ace. No diaries is right. But when this case actually comes to court, it looks like there'll be a battle of who can outdraft who between Jane and Mr. Neff, young lawyer. We learn more details when next we meet the Easy Aces.